Lindsey Graham, newly reelected after defeating Jamie Harrison, is continuing his pivot from originally criticizing Donald Trump before he became president to now being his biggest defender literally anywhere, including his family members. Here is what he has to say a little bit about what Donald Trump should do now that he has apparently lost, although Lindsey Graham doesn't accept that, and what it means for the future of the Republican Party.
Looked at, and the software was used all over the country. There's a lot of shenanigans going on here. If I were President Trump, I would take all this to court. I'd fight back. And from a Republican point of view, mail-in balloting is a nightmare for us. The post office is now the new election center. It's the wild, wild west when it comes to mail-in balloting. Everything we worried about has come true. So if we don't fight back in 2020, we're never going to win again presidentially. A lot's at stake here.
Okay, so look, that's a big statement. The idea that if Donald Trump does what every president has done, including, or person who's lost the presidential election, including Hillary Clinton, who, by the way, will have lost these states by much more narrow margins than Donald Trump would have done. She conceded the next morning. So if Trump does what they did, Republicans will never win another election. I don't know, Rashad, what do you think about that?
This is Lindsey Graham trying to make people panic. That's all that is. He wants Republicans to feel as if Trump does not win, right? If you don't do it now, no Republican will ever win in the future. That is simply a fear tactic. And the reason why he's doing it is because Lindsey Graham realizes that voters who are conservative, who are Republicans, they aren't necessarily hardcore for Trump. They voted for Trump, right? Because of the partisanship, the tribalism of party politics, but they're not going all in for Trump in this conspiracy theory. But if you affix the conspiracy theory to saying that if you don't do it now, you will never see a Republican president in the rest of your life, well, that connects to the simple Republican that just wants to have conservative ideology without all of the rhetoric associated with Trump. Now they feel as if they're part of this opportunity to make sure they protect their Republican agenda. It is a lie. A Republican can win just like a Democrat can win, fair and square, based on the issues and based on how you excite your base and get moderate voters to participate for you.
Yeah, at least in theory. The modern track record isn't amazing for them. But what I find especially rich about Lindsey Graham effectively whining that the electoral system is unfair for Republicans, that it's in some way biased against them, is, dude, like we were talking about earlier, Democrats already have to win in multiple different ways to have a chance of winning. That's right. They have to win the Electoral College, they have to win the popular vote, and they probably need to win the popular vote by at least 3% to really have any chance whatsoever. In modern history, the Republicans have won the popular vote in 2004 with George W. Bush. To get another one, you have to go back to George H.W. Bush,
That's right.
who a lot of our audience wasn't even alive. They may not even know who that is. That's how long ago it is. Yeah. It is virtually unheard of for a Republican to actually win more votes. Now that does not mean that they can't become president, because we have this backup mechanism that can put them in even when the people fairly overwhelmingly reject their platform. They should be thanking their lucky stars that the system has been rigged so thoroughly, both from the founding and more recently in a lot of these states where, we won't go back through the whole list again. We've talked about a lot of the ways that they do that, but all of that benefits Republicans. There are so many needless obstacles for Democrats to end up winning, and yet generally the Democrats most of the time still do, at least in recent history.
Don't you find it ironic that Lindsey Graham is crying inequity, that somehow it's not equal treatment for Republicans? If you just do this process, which by the way, everybody can participate based on this same process. Republicans have the same opportunity to put in a mail-in ballot as a Democrat does, right? But Lindsey Graham is saying that the process unfairly damages or unfairly restricts Republican voters. The same guy who does not believe systemic bias and racism exists in America. The same individual who believes that as long as everybody has the same access, everything can work out, right? He doesn't believe in principles of equity, but all of a sudden, He's describing a principle of equity as it relates to Republicans being disenfranchised, even though Republicans have the same opportunity and the same methodology to vote as anyone else in America.
Yep. And on top of that, supposedly we live in a center-right country, so they should have an advantage in that way. Doesn't seem to be the case. Yeah, and look, let me waste 45 seconds of our time. If you are watching this and you're a conservative, you're a Republican, you wear a red hat or whatever, I am going to waste our time by asking you to have a little bit of empathy and imagine how you would feel if Democrats won a bunch of times despite getting less votes. Like, what if you were looking out there at these Democrats that you hate and you distrust, and you felt, man, look how superior I am to them. They can't win votes, and yet they still have political power all the time. Despite the fact that they can't get the popular vote, they still become president pretty regularly. Despite the fact that they don't get as many votes in senatorial elections, they still have the majority in the Senate. Despite the fact that they can't do all of that, they still have a super majority in the Supreme Court. How mad would you be if the hated, feared Democrats were the ones that had a lock on virtually all political power, despite the fact we just take it as a given that the Democrats are gonna get more votes at this point? The whole thing is just ridiculous. And this is the best democracy in the world.
You know, this whole thing about the Electoral College is so great that every country we've colonized, the one thing we never gave them was the Electoral College, right? So we'll colonize a country, we'll set up their democracy, and we won't give them the Electoral College. You know why we don't? Because they wouldn't fall for it. Right? Nobody else would fall for this.
Yeah, 100%. Oh God, the whole thing is so frustrating.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.